Introduction. After 9/11, the Muslims were unjustifiably labeled as terrorists across the globe. It is beyond doubt that some Muslims have certainly committed acts of terrorism. But people from other communities like Hindus, Christians, and Jews have also committed acts of terrorism. Therefore, no religion and community can be blamed for terrorist acts of some individuals or groups. Despite its long history, it is often difficult to precisely define terrorism, from the Latin terrere, which means to frighten, and to separate terrorist acts from interpersonal crimes of violence. For example, if a group robs a bank to obtain funds for its revolutionary struggles, should the act be treated as terrorism or as common bank robbery? In this instance, defining a crime as terrorism depends on the kind of legal response the act provokes from those in power. To be considered terrorism, which is a political crime, an act must carry with it the intent to disrupt and change the government, and must not be merely common law crime committed for greed or egotism. Defining terrorism. Because of its complexity, an all-encompassing definition of terrorism is difficult to formulate, although most experts agree that it generally involves the illegal use of force against innocent people to achieve a political objective. The term international terrorism means terrorism involving citizens or the territory of more than one country. A terrorist group is any group practicing or that has significant subgroups that practice international terrorism. Terrorism is defined from the variable viewpoints of law, politics, culture, and public opinion, and the sciences. Terrorism involves the use of illegitimate means, typically involving the exercise of violence oriented at civilians for political ideological purposes. Terrorism thus has both an instrumental component, referring to its means, and a goal-oriented component, referring to its objectives. The definition of terrorism accepted by the UNO. Terrorism is an anxiety-inspiring method of repeated violent action employed by semi-clandestine individual, group, or state actors for idiosyncratic, criminal, or political reasons, whereby, in contrast to assassination, the direct targets of violence are not the main targets. Perspective of criminology on terrorism. The field of terrorism studies broadly encompasses both terrorism as a particular activity involving the infliction of harm for specified purposes and counterterrorism, involving practices and institutions concerned with defining and responding to terrorism. Criminology incorporates the social scientific study of crime and deviance, as well as the practices and institutions of social control, broadly defined as the definition of and response to crime or deviance. According to the criminologists, A. Terrorism is a form of criminal or deviant behavior. B. Counterterrorism is part of social control. C. A terrorist is not a target which may be eliminated through military action. D. For criminologists, a terrorist is a suspect, not a target. E. Criminologists say that terrorist suspects should be given the right of due legal process and a fair trial. According to the criminologists, the role of police and civil judiciary, instead of military courts, must be improved and enhanced in dealing with terrorists. In criminological discourse, the term criminal justice is often used to refer to the formal means of social control, including the institutions of police, courts, and corrections. At the most general level of criminological analysis, then, terrorism and counterterrorism can be conceived as crime and social control, respectively. Studying counterterrorism as a form of social control, and more specifically, a component of criminal justice, criminological research can bring out the security dimensions of social control that have a military or political character. Much of the contemporary public discourse on terrorism, especially in the popular media, typically focuses on counterterrorism in the world of politics and in relation to war. But criminologists can reveal the manner in which institutions of social control, particularly law enforcement agencies, conceive of and respond to terrorism as a criminal matter. The targets of counterterrorism are thereby treated as suspects, who are given certain rights of due process on the basis of publicly presented evidence in courts, and who, upon determination of guilt, can receive punishment. Military counterterrorism operations, by contrast, are oriented at enemies, not suspects, who can be apprehended or killed in combat. Captured enemies are detained to be released when a cessation of hostilities has been declared. The respective logics of criminal justice policy and military counterterrorism actions, then, are very different, although they factually coexist in the wider constellation of counterterrorism today. Bringing out the essentially multidimensional nature of counterterrorism is among criminology's most exciting challenges.